If you want to go on the Nine Club using them in some cringy clickbait title like "They roasted me on the Nine Club," which they definitely did not do, that's probably not going to make Chris want to invite you on the show.
All right, let's do this. I've had multiple people check in on my well-being since this video came out from Gifted Hater called Social Media Skateboarders. There's a lot of discussion going on in my Discord. Apparently this video is pretty brutal, so I decided to wait before I watch it so I could record my reaction live. I'm going to watch this thing, listen to what he has to say, and I'm going to share my honest reactions and opinions. Before we get started, just one comment on something that I value, which is that I really value discussion. Like, I'm not the kind of person who hates somebody for having a different opinion than me. I think it's really popular these days to view like online arguments as this big heated thing and it's so dramatic, but that's not really how I see it. I just see this as an interesting discussion, and I am passionate about this subject because my opinions on skate culture come down to like just some philosophies I'm developing in my life that I think are really important, and not everyone has to share them, and that's okay. So with that said, let's get into this video.
Skateboarding and YouTube. What has been the most cursed marriage of hobby and social media? This video that George Poulos did recently where he's reacting to the Nine Club, so it's going to be dope. I'm going to be reacting to a reaction. I'm uniquely positioned kind of to talk about this because, you know, historically it's definitely true that the core skate community has turned its nose up at YouTube, and I think that some of the guys that do YouTube are confused as to why that is the case. And I'm going to be sharing my perspective as somebody who also does YouTube for a living, but has some level of acceptance from the core skateboarding community.
His YouTube is just his name.
George.
Yes, George I'm going to blow his last name. Poilus.
Bruh.
Okay. Here we go. Crazy, dude. George P is getting scooter ads. I've never even received an email.
Chris Chan's another one too. I've asked Chris to be on the show many times. He's a little, standoffish, because there's the comment section.
I think it's super interesting that Chris Chan doesn't want to go on the Nine Club, because if I were invited on the Nine Club, I would go immediately.
If you want to go on the Nine Club using them in some cringy clickbait title like "They roasted me on the Nine Club," which they definitely did not do, that's probably not going to make Chris want to invite you on the show. It seems like from Chris's perspective and George's perspective, it's kind of a mystery, and George goes on to say that it's arbitrary. This line exists. Like, I don't believe that there should be a line between social media skating, like doing YouTube, and core skating. I think that you can represent the core community of skateboarding and you can appeal to those people on YouTube. The platform is irrelevant. To understand why this divide exists, from my perspective, we can go back in time. Take a look at some of the YouTube founding fathers. Aaron Cairo, Andy Schrock, a little bit later on, I think, John Hill. They really inspired this generation of skate YouTubers like George Poulos. If you look at the style of those videos, they're pretty much like vlogs. The content isn't necessarily about skateboarding. It's more about the person who's uploading that stuff on their YouTube channel. When you make a skateboard vlog, a vlog is not counterculture. Vlogging is on some turbo incredible normie shit. That type of energy where you put on this completely fake personality that a lot of these YouTubers do, that's like a learned attitude. That's a learned way of being that they see as successful on YouTube.
Not really arguing against anything at this point, but the interesting thing about calling vlogging like a normie activity is that it's looked at as kooky by the majority of the skateboarding community, or the core skateboarding community. So like, if you look at vlogging from a perspective of the skateboarding community, it's actually not normie. It's actually very opposite of normal. It actually has a stigma and it's viewed as kooky, weird, which your comments are embodying that. It's interesting because I used to be like, what is good YouTube? My name is George on all my videos. And I think he's right that was kind of inspired by Andy, John, just like what the energy of YouTube was at the time. But it's like, it was also just fun. And I don't necessarily feel like Gifted Hater is trying to shame that energy. He's just pointing out that it's different, and that's totally fair. You might not like that persona that's being put on. That's fine. The video might just not be directed for you, or you might just not like the video, and that's fine, and you don't have to watch it. I don't think we're disagreeing about anything yet, but just wanted to share my perspective.
The trend of vlogging is dying off. That's prevalent, in my opinion, on YouTube in general, but it's especially prevalent on skateboard YouTube.
I actually think this is true. I've been like deep trying to figure out why my channel isn't doing well. I think that there may be an overall trend that like skate vlogs just aren't doing as well on YouTube. I've observed that too. I'm deep in this. This is my job. It's something I think about all the time. And I think of a lot of the skate YouTubers out there. They've been doing skate vlogs for so long. Maybe there's just like a lessening of the passion for it, because I do believe that people's interests ebb and flow and change as we grow up. I know mine certainly have. I've been kind of wanting to make a different style of video. This is kind of an example, like a conversational video about a topic that I'm interested in. I do agree that the vlog format is less popular on YouTube right now, and that applies to skateboarding vlogs as well.
3 years ago, John Hill, he's getting 743,000, 100,000, 271,000, 1.3 million views. Generally speaking, he's getting some really high performing videos. So John Hill at this point in his career is definitely making a killing. If you look at his stuff now, it's not looking anywhere near as promising.
From a YouTuber perspective, it's very challenging to keep up with the demands of the algorithm, an audience that's growing and changing, your own changing interests. There's just a lot of inputs to this equation about why a channel may not be doing as well. Regardless of how much I love creating content about skateboarding, the kinds of skate videos I want to make are changing. How often I want to make videos about skating is changing. I've been going through something, wondering if I should dive into a second channel that's not even about skating. So
what went from John Hill's worst videos being 50K 3 or 4 years ago, now those are his best performing videos. Clearly there has been a shift in taste, and this isn't only applying to John Hill. You can look at somebody like Garrett Jenner's YouTube videos as well. 500,000 views, 131,000 views. Look at his channel now, 31K, 52K, 20K, 18K. It's basically the same exact story. Used to get tons of views, used to rake in money, and now the situation is not looking as good. I don't think that they have adjusted their game plan and sort of looked around and seen what people are wanting to watch.
More or less, generally, I agree with this. Like, I've studied the skate YouTubers as well. I've been trying to figure out what I can do to get my channel really doing well again. My personal thing is like, I'm just going for creative freedom, trying to make things I'm passionate about. I actually think for a long time I've been forcing out that kind of skate vlog content, even when it's not necessarily what I was really passionate about. 100% YouTube is changing. I agree. Culturally, interests ebb and flow as well. Of course, that's just how life and social media seems to work. The hype, it moves around, you know. And as a full-time creator, you have to be ready for that. And you know, your view counts and your income is not promised. It can ebb and flow. It can go up and down unpredictably, and I've experienced that.
I don't mean to disparage any of these dudes, honestly. Like, genuinely, today I'm not here to kick anybody in the balls, but I am not surprised that people kind of got disenchanted with this style of content.
Yeah, and in a way, me neither. It's the same with any content production, TV. You got to change it up. Movies, like, styles change, interests change. This all makes sense. I also really appreciate the comment about him not wanting to really hate on anybody. That was my assumption going into all this. It's funny, Gifted Hater and I have all these conversations very publicly. I've never actually had a phone or text conversation with him, but my assumption about him is that he's just enjoying this interesting discussion as well. As a person who assumes the best in people, I think if we met up in real life, I think we'd have a great skate session. I think we would probably get along.
It is just like totally phony YouTuber bullshit.
I guess there's the only thing I take issue with is like the actual framing of it as like phony YouTuber bullshit, because what if it's not that? What if it's just fun? And what if what's fun is lining up with what's doing well in the algorithm? Like, so what? Like, why does that have to be considered phony and bullshit? If you think a title and thumbnail is bullshit, or if you think a creator makes bullshit titles and thumbnails, like, you you can just not watch the video. I don't think the negativity is really necessary there. And especially when you're seeing your view counts going down, like you start to get desperate and like you start to want to play the game better. There's an element of hate the game, not the player. For anyone trying to make YouTube a living, whether from skating or from other kinds of videos, there are metrics that you want to hit. You need the click-through rate to get the watch time, and I've battled with this for a long time. And for me, I see that as part of just playing the game. You know, it's like when you get that validation from the YouTube analytics, you want to repeat it. Call it shallow, but once that's your entire income, it's like you start to feel that pressure to make those titles and thumbnails, and it's just a reality. And you know, I think it's important to acknowledge the pressure that content creators do face once you get in that position of really wanting to grow and get the click-through rate. And then, you know, especially when you reach a point where your rent payment is reliant on your click-through rate, so you do what you can. You know, you do what you can to play the game.
George Poulos, he's got 318,000 subscribers, and this video came out on the 31st of last month. This is nearly a week old now. It hasn't even cracked 9,000 views yet. Obviously, he's not adapting his content, and he's clickbaiting his audience. So you want to clickbait your audience, that's fine, but you should know that that's a short-term strategy. If you want to have a sustainable career in YouTube, and take this with a grain of salt because I'm brand new to YouTube. I've only been doing this for a year, but my goal has never been to trick anybody into clicking on my video, because if I were to ever get to a point where I had 318,000 subscribers, I wouldn't want all of those people at some point down the line to be like, oh, here's Joa just titling the video whatever the fuck he wants.
I don't think he's being an asshole, and I actually think this is a reasonable point. And hopefully from what I was just saying is you could tell that this has actually been on my mind already. My kind of strategy with the clickbait to this point has been make my audience understand that clickbait is something I have to do. So then in a way, it like breaks down the barrier of the clickbait. It's like my audience comes to expect the exaggeration, understand that that's something I need to do in order to pull in a new audience. And you know, I try to keep it reasonable for the most part. Like I did not get roasted on the 9 Club. They were actually very nice to me, but I do think it's a relevant conversation. And my thinking was that title would help me pull in a new audience. And he's absolutely correct. I was trying to get more views on that video.
In my opinion, this topic is interesting enough to the point where you don't need to clickbait it. I think that this is an interesting discussion to have, and I think that it's kind of unfortunate that people feel like they need to resort to lying to their audience about the contents of their video.
Dude, yeah, man, I mean, Gifted Hater shit. Smart dude, honestly. I mean, generally, like, I seek out social media advice often. It's like I meet with Danny once a week and we talk about this sort of thing. It's like, what's the right thing to do here? Do we listen to the algorithm or do we follow our truth? And what's more important to value? So it's all interesting, nuanced stuff. And I don't mean to trick people. I have just fell into a place where I actually feel like I have to do that in order to get enough views. And like, I've experimented with more authentic titles and they often don't do very well, but I do look at it very short term and I get scared to make that my consistent style, and I think that may be changing now. And it's funny how synchronized this all is because I've come to actually personally start changing my style. But yeah, guys, like, I'm not a person who's afraid to change. If someone calls me out and has good advice and I have been doing something wrong, I'm not afraid to admit that, and I'm very open to change and growth.
So this little tidbit about how skaters are sort of like this judgmental group of people and how it doesn't really like make any sense, I've never agreed with that philosophy. I've always been on board with skateboarders being kind of judgmental assholes because there's like a gatekeeping mentality. I think a lot of people, you know, they think that's a bad thing, and skateboarding can be an intimidating thing to get into. But what I think happens is when you have a culture like that, it produces kind of a hardened community. If you're a noob and you go to the skate park or something and like nobody has to be nice to you. Nobody has to teach you how to drop in on a ramp. Like, sure, that's great if somebody does that. There's kids that have the expectation that they're going to have their hand held through skateboarding and they're going to be able to talk to all the cool people and like it's just going to be easy fucking peasy. And I think that's what George Poulos wants. In my opinion, I don't think that that's like the best case scenario for skateboarding. I think skateboarding is cool because it requires you to kind of earn your stripes, and the people who end up down the line still skating are the people who really like it. So what you end up with is a group of people that are really passionate about what they do.
I do really disagree with that. I think that if you don't really like skating, you're going to give up anyway. And there's nothing wrong with the transitory skater who picks it up for 6 months and then quits. I do think they still deserve respect and kindness at a skate park. I'm not necessarily saying that like when you're at the skate park having an intense session, like you need to teach the beginner how to drop in on the ramp, but like give them the common courtesy of a smile and like just project open energy. Like you don't have to be closed off. I think the reason I think that's sad is because when you're young or when you're a beginner at something, you're naturally intimidated. And if people act coldly towards you or if they act gatekeepy, you probably are going to give up. That's some weird toxic shit to think that that's good, in my opinion. Again, nothing against you as a person, but what's that about? What's that about? Why do you not want beginners to feel welcome? Why do you not want kids to feel welcome? Why do you want to portray an image of coolness? I'm not against being cool. I'm not saying like a beginner who's been skating for 9 months deserves to like get a Flow sponsorship at the skate shop and have an in at the local indoor skate park. Like I'm not saying everyone should automatically be like in like that, but I think you're gonna keep a lot of wonderful people out of skateboarding with that gatekeeping mentality. Every single human being should be kind to every other single human being.
I think Mikey would totally be the type of guy to purposefully mispronounce somebody's name to like try to flex on them.
Poulos. He's got 300,000.
I don't think so. Mikey's a really nice dude. Really nice, genuine dude.
Okay.
Hey, if you want to help me make it 400K, you know what to do.
This is exactly what I'm talking about with like YouTubers, skateboard YouTubers copying the same exact format that YouTubers in the past have done. It's so annoying to just be in the middle of the YouTube video to be like, yo, if you do want to make it 400,000 subscribers, you know what to do. Hit the fucking red button in the description. Woo! And then every time an image pops up on screen, it goes bing, bong, bing. It turns into like a fucking sensory experience. And you know, you have to add fucking lo-fi music in the background. Like,
I think Gifted Hater takes this argument a little too far because you're starting to judge people for their creative decisions. My underlying argument behind this is just don't watch the video or don't watch the creator. Like the lo-fi beats, I think that creates a nice chill atmosphere, and I like editing my videos to a lo-fi beat. I think it's fun, it's chill, it's relaxed. Sure, other YouTubers do that, but I can still enjoy that. And if that includes a lo-fi beat, I'm gonna include one. The criticisms are equally subjective, is all I'm saying.
I look at what YouTube is by and large, and I think, you know, I like YouTube, but I want to do it in my own way. I want to cut out all the shit that I don't like about YouTube because, in my opinion, you don't have to remind people to subscribe and like the video in the beginning, in the middle, and the end of every single time you fucking upload something.
Again, this is actually perfectly fair. This is the kind of thing that I would actually love to talk about in my weekly meeting with Danny. Should we keep doing like the edits, or do people want to see like more authentic raw stuff, you know? It's interesting. What I was talking about earlier, I actually think this is constructive criticism. Like, I don't think this is hate.
I think that, you know, a lot of core skateboarders don't like skateboard YouTubers because skateboard YouTubers are kind of nerds. I'm sorry. That's just how I see it. Call me a nerd if you want to. Call me a hypocrite because I have glasses and I sit in my room and I also make YouTube videos.
Oh, that's really funny. I wonder if there are any core skaters who hate Gifted Hater. That'd be interesting.
When it comes to a hobby like skateboarding, I think people want their viewpoints and, you know, the way that they see things and their culture represented by the person on screen. And I don't think that somebody with like a phony vlog personality, that doesn't reflect the ideals of skateboarders.
I think that's a bit of a stretch and that's a bit unfair. Like, you're saying that you enjoy skateboarding, so you want everyone else who enjoys skateboarding to portray it on the internet in the way that you like. That's not fair, because not everyone is going to attach themselves and enjoy skateboarding in the same way as you. There are many, 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 many different ways to enjoy and love skateboarding. Just to name a few examples, some people may love skateboarding because they love learning every single flip trick on flat ground. Some people may love skateboarding for the sensation of bombing hills and rolling very fast. One of the reasons that I love skateboarding is because it's this beautiful part of my life that gives me physical activity, an element of progression, a creative outlet, something to make videos about, helps me make friends, and I like the role that it plays in my life, and I like to share that on the internet. I think it's a little bit blasphemous to expect that everybody who has a passion for creating content and skateboarding is going to portray skateboarding in the way that you want to. I think harboring that judgment is a little bit toxic, and I think the right way to do it is actually to portray skateboarding how you want to on your platform, and you can actually let the other portrayals of skateboarding coexist without any hate or negativity. Because that's called having respect for other people's opinions and passions and what they want to do with their lives, and respecting other people's creativity.
If you don't like YouTube skateboarders because fucking vlogger personalities don't appeal to you, that means that you're not a good-hearted person?
No. Okay, so to clarify, I don't think that you're a bad-hearted person if you don't like watching skate YouTubers. I don't think you're a bad-hearted person if you disagree with how skate YouTubers are doing it. But what I do think is not so nice is actually harboring resentment, judgment, negativity, wanting those people to stop what they're doing, wanting those people to skate how you skate. And more generally, this applies to the comment about gatekeeping. I think wanting to gatekeep those people away from the activity that you enjoy, I think that is not so nice, and that is not good-hearted, because then you're stepping out of your own way to try to change or inhibit how people want to enjoy skating or be creative. At the end of the day, I promise there is plenty of room on this earth for everyone to enjoy every activity how they want to.
So it's funny to me that George Poulos is the type of guy that will say, I don't really pay attention to what core skaters are doing. I don't read any of the negative comments, and then is mystified as to why the core skateboard community doesn't like him.
But it also lines up with my point. It's like you can respect both sides without watching them. I really hate to further this language of the divide, but for the sake of conversation, the core skate side does not have to watch my content. The only issue I take is the projection of negativity, judgment, and gatekeeping. I don't consume too much core skate culture these days, and that's fine. It's just not what I'm interested in right now. I've had phases for sure, and obviously I love street skating, and that came from somewhere, and I respect and appreciate that. But even though it's not what I want to watch right now because it doesn't appeal to me, just like how for core skaters, what I do doesn't appeal to them, it doesn't mean that we can come together at the skate park and be kind and nice and accepting and respectful of each other, which actually is how it usually is. I think that respect that I'm advocating for is actually largely there, and a lot of this is just conversation. I will say the comments can be very disrespectful, but that's probably mostly children.
Maybe if you read the comments and you were open to criticism, you would understand it a bit better. I think that, somebody like George Poulos is a professional who makes videos about skateboarding, yet doesn't understand the skateboard community in the slightest. And yeah, you're on this sort of niche part of YouTube skating where you don't have to appeal to those people necessarily to do what you do. But I think that to act confused and to claim that the core skateboarding's opinions are totally arbitrary because you don't pay attention to core skateboarding and you don't listen to negative comments reflects more about you than it does the core skateboarding community. So instead of looking inward and trying to figure out what am I doing wrong and why don't these people like me, you just claim that those people's opinions are arbitrary.
It's a definitely interesting discussion here. I think what it is for me is an underlying philosophy. It comes down to this is a creative medium. It's an art form that I have found a passion for. What it comes down to for me can actually be generalized to this. Does any human being have the right to judge or hate on another human being for the way that they choose to be creative? In my opinion, no, they don't. They can choose not to consume that art or creativity or that video for whatever reason, but does that mean they should stop making art? Does that mean they don't belong? Does that mean they should be talked shit about? I don't think so.
As a YouTuber, I think that criticism kind of crucial to what we both do, what George and I do. George and I have the same job, which is YouTubers. It's one thing, I think, if your channel's popping and you're killing the game and you're like, I don't give a fuck about no negative comments, bitch. Look at my bank account. I'm fucking murdering it. George isn't in that position, clearly, with his YouTube channel. I mean, we've seen his views. So to continue having this attitude, I'm just relentlessly pursuing my own happiness, as incredibly cringe as that sentence is.
How can that be cringe challenge to relentlessly pursue your own happiness. It's a very hard thing to do. I think it's like my main pursuit of life. Learning to block out judgment and criticism from a certain group of people has been hugely important for me to continue being happy in this life. The examples go far beyond just core skateboarders' opinions and judgments. It also comes down to growing up and you feel societal pressure from parents, from teachers. I don't know, for me personally, like I felt this huge weight growing up that my life and my career had to look a certain way. Like I felt a lot of pressure to go corporate America, and that's another form of judgment and criticism. Like when you're being creative on the internet and you're pursuing things like skateboarding and video creation, and when you receive negative feedback on that pushes you towards a particular way of life, it's actually much better to tune that out and to trust yourself. And that is the philosophy behind what I said there. Yeah, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I am able to remove myself from negative people. I'm not dumb. Like I actually think this video is good criticism, but a lot of the comment section is not good criticism. In fact, I even think the YouTube algorithm and using view counts is not good criticism either. I think there are forms of criticism that are toxic and that are going to inhibit your creativity and make you feel boxed in. I've actually been dealing with that for a long time, trying to cater to the algorithm. You guys probably feel like this is a broken record, but another example is I used to really listen to criticism of wearing a helmet, and I still get that in my comment section of people saying I'll be more respected if I skate without a helmet. The whole reason I stopped wearing one growing up, again, it's a different time and I was younger and more impressionable, but I was listening to my peers, you know, who made fun of me, maybe not so seriously, but it held weight as a young kid when my peers that I respected and looked up to made fun of me for wearing a helmet. You know, I listened to that criticism and I strayed from the path I wanted to be on. So I actually do believe in like being selective about who you take criticism from. Unfortunately, the vast majority of critical comments that I get on my YouTube channel are also riddled with hate. But dude, honestly, this video I think it's insightful for me. I think this is constructive.
It's also like kind of sad to hear that, because it's like, dude, if you were more open-minded, perhaps you would be able to see that there might be something valuable to learn from what dissenting opinions are saying. And
I think you're actually mistaken about how open I am. I try to be very open to change. And like I said at the beginning, I actually value differing opinions and discussions. When I sense that it's kind of based in hate and based in trying to just bring me down and make me feel bad, I am very quick to protect my energy and disregard that.
The toxic positivity of skateboarding YouTubers, everything is good and everything is dope, and anybody who says anything negative, like their opinion doesn't really matter because it's not a positive one. I think these YouTubers have like deluded themselves into believing that they couldn't possibly be the problem. There is no problem with being a toxically positive person.
Interesting about toxic positivity, I will say, like, again, people have the right to be creatively free, I believe. And if you want to create content that's all positive, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we're past the point in social media where, as a creator, do you have an obligation to share the negative side of your life as well? I don't necessarily think so. I think if it's a medium for your happiness and you get joy from sharing the positive sides of your life and the positive mindsets, I actually don't see anything wrong with that.
You can tell that Karyuma is really like a placeholder for his emotions about how the core skate community thinks about him.
So yeah, Karyuma is similar to helmets for me in my head, because it's another thing that the majority of skaters have decided they hate. There was a whole debacle on my TikTok about this. I'm actually currently more well informed of why skaters hate Karyuma, and I think a lot of the opinions are valid. It's just in my nature when the majority shares a certain opinion to question that opinion. So that's why I've been stuck up on the Karyuma thing lately. I'm kind of getting over it. I don't choose to hate Karyuma as a brand. I'm very fine with skaters deciding that they don't like the brand and choosing not to support the brand. I'm less fine with hating on skaters for wearing the shoes, because again, that comes to my philosophy that you should accept how another individual chooses to live their life. And I know it's a small thing to judge somebody for wearing a particular brand of shoes, but that does go counter to my philosophy of open acceptance of all human beings and their decisions to live life, unless that other person's decisions are actively harming your life or causing harm to other people, which I don't think choosing to wear Karyumas is doing. You know, you talked a lot of talk about like respecting differing opinions. So I find it interesting how when I kind of defend Kariyuma that it's like so triggering. Like I see you getting worked up too, my man, and we can disagree about this. It's interesting. I'm pretty neutral about Kariyuma. Really what I was bringing up in this video is like less Kariyuma itself, more like asking a question like, is this an arbitrary mob decision or is there a reason?
The funny thing about this is that George actually tagged me in a TikTok about this in the comments, and then I responded to it because that's how TikTok works. You can respond to a comment, and I explained it, and I did part 1, and then I was going to try to do part 2, but George deleted the comment.
I didn't delete the comment. I think that TikTok is glitching out. I think it's unfortunate that that created a miscommunication, but I actually left that comment because I wanted to hear your response because I do respect differing opinions. I think this public conversation is like an example of that.
It says so much to me that George doesn't understand why skaters don't like Kariyuma.
Like if somebody doesn't understand something, why don't you just explain it to them? And that's actually what the purpose of my TikTok comment was, because I was ready and open for an explanation, and I respect you as a reasonable dude with educated opinions. There's a tendency to like take a lack of understanding or disagreement as this like big weighty personal thing, but it's just an interesting conversation.
There's so many different examples of why skaters don't like Kariyuma. I'll just give a few. What was one of the first things that they did? Sponsor YouTube skaters to do shoe reviews, which is something that George participated in himself. And that's obviously totally unethical.
Yes, Kariyuma sponsored me to make a shoe review. And I understand, like I wouldn't have done that if I were Kariyuma, but the paid relationships were disclosed, so I don't think it's unethical because that gives the viewer an educated awareness of what's going on. Like if you know it's an ad, it's not unethical. It's just if you're pretending it's not an ad, that makes it unethical.
Right off the bat, they're untrustworthy. Then you look at who Kariyuma sponsors. Instagram skater, contest skater, Instagram skater. What you get when you sponsor Instagram skaters and contest skaters is you get maximum visibility in skateboarding without actually contributing at all to the part of skateboarding that really keeps the wheels turning, which is core skateboarding.
I think this is a subjective opinion that anyone is welcome to have to side with Gifted Hater on this. Personally, I guess I'm like not very against the mainstreamification of skateboarding. It doesn't bother me because just the way I connected with skateboarding growing up, I connected with the YouTubers. I watched core skating too growing up, but like what really mattered to me about skateboarding at the end of the day was like how I felt on my skateboard and the way it acted as a tool in my life for various things. To me, I just see a business trying to make business decisions in the modern landscape, and I see both sides. I'm very neutral. Saying that the Kariyuma hate was arbitrary was an uneducated thing to say, so I'll rescind that.
Speaking of Kariyuma and like this attitude that George has, which is like, yo man, we should just go to the park, like everybody should just fucking vibe, and there would never ever be a reason that you might not like what somebody is doing at the skate park. Which have you ever been to a skate park? I imagine you've been to a skate park, George. One of the skaters that skates for Kariyuma, that guy Trap Dion, I have this footage of him at the skate park acting like a fucking maniac doing the ugliest spread eagle tray flip fatty to flatties, and then in between attempts doing push-ups and backflips, basically turning himself into this spectacle. To say that, like, you know, there would never be a reason to be upset at anybody when this guy is obviously just fucking completely terrorizing the vibes at this skate park.
I don't know about this. I might have to really disagree with this one because you don't know this dude. He's trying a huge trick that I certainly couldn't do, that big ass tray flip. And so what if he wants to do a push up or a backflip? It's a physical space to move your body. Frankly, it looks fun. I don't know, like what you're projecting right there is this idea that there's this narrow, particular way that you're supposed to interact with the skate park, and I think that is bullshit.
It's the new, like, Jamie Thomas, or the new Andrew Reynolds. Instead of them starting the business, they just go into basically YouTube becoming the business.
That's the craziest comparison I've ever heard, by the way, saying that YouTubers are the new Andrew Reynolds and Jamie Thomas. To me, those guys are totally different than what YouTubers doing because they started massive skateboard companies that have been, you know, foundational and fundamental to skateboarding sustainability over the past couple of decades. And to say that YouTubers are like the new generation of that, it's like, okay, not yet. Maybe maybe one day, I'm not saying that's never going to happen, because I think the future of skateboarding is going to have a lot to do with social media, and there will be people who figure out how to do it in a way that appeals to core skaters. But to say that the current class of YouTubers is like the new Jamie Thomas, I think is psycho.
I mean, he was just making an argument that YouTubers are another group of people who have found a way to turn skateboarding into a business. I'm sure Revive is comparable in scale to Zero and Baker and whatnot.
Unless you're going to make the case that like Braille and Revive are like, those are legit.
Yes, I will make that case, mister.
Anything about like generating revenue is like just gets Mikey Taylor incredibly horny. And it's like people think that skaters don't like Mikey Taylor anymore because Mikey Taylor's making money, I think, or is like some finance bro. And it's like people don't like finance bros because they're disingenuous people. They put on fake personalities to try to sell you on what they're doing. That's why skaters don't like Mikey Taylor anymore, because he comes across as a massive phony.
Nah, dude, like you gotta separate the content that people are making from their identities. Mikey has every right to be a finance content creator. He's doing finance tips on TikTok and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that. He's not trying to say that this is who I am. It's just something that he's interested in sharing. Not trying to speak for Mikey, but I'll assume that he feels like his content is actually benefiting people's lives because he's giving them financial wellness tips, which you don't have to subscribe to. But personally, like I had a learning phase to go through, and I appreciated the content creators whose content I assumed, when I look things up about the stock market, I appreciated having that content there. And that doesn't have to make someone corny for being interested in finance. I think that's a little bit shallow and a little bit unnecessarily judgmental. Maybe you love skateboarding, but you just don't you don't feel like making videos. It's not one of your passions. That makes a lot more sense. But if you're holding it back because of that core versus YouTuber thing and you want to be accepted here, that's mad wild that you would let fear of judgment control your decisions.
I agree with this point that George makes. Actually,
we agree. Let's go.
If you want to make YouTube videos about skateboarding, you most definitely should, and you should give it your best go, because I think that there's space on YouTube for more skateboarding content. I just think that people should be aware the same exact formula that has been done for decades at this point, which is basically, hey, I was a fan of the Casey Neistat videos and I have a skateboard. Like, if that's what you're gonna fucking do for your YouTube, I wouldn't expect it to be successful. If I'm doing what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is doing isn't getting that many views, why would what I'm doing be different?
Keep saying this, but this is actually a smart perspective that I appreciate.
There is an argument to be made for like Revive and stuff and how it's onboarding, and that's good for the skate community because it gets people into skating. That's fine. Like, okay, whatever. Personally, I wouldn't let my kid watch Aaron Cairo though. Dude's fucking super weird. Nobody needs to be a poser. Nobody needs to not learn skateboarding. All you need to do is subscribe to the Braille Army Plus app. The thing with this question and why I don't fucking like this guy, and why if I had a kid, I wouldn't let them watch Aaron Cairo. I wouldn't even let my dog watch Aaron Cairo.
So this is mean. Can we acknowledge that? It's mean. You don't know the guy.
The difference between beginners and posers is beginners are just people that are trying to learn how to skateboard. Posers are people that are pretending to be something that they're not.
Dude, but like people need to find themselves, and sometimes that means when you're young, you pretend to be something that you're not, and that's okay. Let people go through the phase. Skateboarding can really help them, but not if they're gate kept out of it. I think it's a mindset that makes people feel bad, and it's judgmental, and people can make whatever decisions they want. You don't have to fuck with them, but you don't have to say Aaron Cairo's a shitty person.
This guy, that's why I stopped skating, to be honest. No one gave me patience or just showed me any.
Exactly. Like, you should see that comment and you should question yourself. Like, that's sad. That's probably a kid commenting that,
Good. I'm glad that you didn't have the balls to keep skating, ex-BMO.
Dude, that's fucked up. That's fucked up and toxic. That's a human being who wanted to skate. By saying that, you're just stomping them further into the ground.
If you wanted to keep skating, you would have.
Not everyone is at a phase in their life where they're confident enough to get through that negativity. You have to be in a strong-minded place to get through that.
Basically, to summarize, I think the future of YouTube and YouTube skateboarding and YouTube social media, it doesn't have to be cringe. If you want to start a fucking YouTube channel, go for it. Try it out. But don't have the expectation that anybody owes you anything by watching your videos. And that, like, especially if you're doing the same exact shit that's already been done for over a decade now, don't expect that anybody's going to want to click on your videos. Like, best of luck to everybody. YouTube is not the problem. The people that upload on YouTube are the problem. And I think the only reason that something like Braille and Revive are still doing well, are still getting views from what what I can see, is that they're literally on some like give your kid the iPad at Olive Garden and open a Braille video type of shit. I don't even know if people that watch Braille are even sentient yet. Meanwhile, like people like John Hill and George Poulos are kind of like, they're trying to make videos for an audience that doesn't really exist anymore. Like if you want to make YouTube vlogs, do it for the CoComelon audience. I think that's it. I love you.
I love you too, bro. Kind of ended it on a fairly wholesome note. Like, I like the encouragement of people to make YouTube channels. I have a few gripes with your opinions, but it was a good video. It was a good video. You're good at articulating your opinions. I still think there's room for a little bit more acceptance. I do really want to agree on respecting differing opinions. That applies to myself when I consider what the core skate community feels. I think there's room for more communication and acceptance on both ends there. I enjoyed having this discussion publicly. Gifted Hater, if you ever want to play a game of skate, I promise I won't do a corny intro, but that'd be cool. All right, bye, y'all.